Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, Giants fans. It has been a while. It has been a long, long time. We hope you're all well. Hope you're all keeping safe and enjoying what's been an up and down kind of season, really. Firstly, I just want to introduce my co-hosts, Ryan and Ginge. How you doing, Ryan?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. All good.
Good, good. And how are you, Ginge? I know you've been a busy man lately.
Yeah, all good, mate. All good. Just plowing through the end of the end of the season with ridiculous amounts of games scheduled in. But yeah, it's good.
We've seen your schedule you sent us the other day, and it's certainly not something I'd want to be doing anyway. Well, I would, but I wouldn't want to travel.
Yeah.
Get me a TARDIS for it. I'm happy. Okay, so as I mentioned, yeah, it has been a while, guys. We've all had our own little bits and bats going on, but you know, that doesn't stop what has been a sort of up and down season for the Giants. We thought, well, we discussed before the podcast, where it'd be a good place to start. We thought we might as well start with New Year, so we'll start with the Giants against Caledonia. I'll have to get used to saying that. I'm still not used to saying Caledonia, but yeah, just going to start with that. So just looking at your thoughts. I mean, I'll say obviously what mine are. It was a 1 point win. I was at the game. Sat courtside. It was absolutely fantastic experience. I thought we had the rub of the green a little bit. Especially, I mean, I've watched that block right at the end time and time again. And it pains me to say, but I do think it was a goaltend. I really do. But that's just the honest guy in me. Just want to see what your thoughts are, guys.
Yeah, that goaltend, I feel like, depending on which angle I watch it at, my opinion changes as to whether hand hit ball or ball hit backboard first. Yeah, like you say, I was sat with you courtside. When the National Basketball Performance Centre, when there's a close game and the Giants are on the up, and you need that noise from the crowd. It reminded me of the Leicester game last year where Will hit that big three to win in the retro game. The noise, the atmosphere, the energy that the players feed off, that kind of we feed off as fans as well. There's some pretty big performances. I think Dirk was in the 20s, seems like an every night thing for him at the moment. And then obviously Taj with that massive block. Yeah, Caledonia, I think they're all quite a classy outfit. Glasgow, Caledonia, whatever you want to call them now. I think, their Americans are pretty good. I think they've just lost one recently, and he's gone over to play in the Canadian League. But they tend to have quite a tough team. Their home record is normally much better than their away record, or it feels like that when they play the Giants. But yeah, really kind of great performance and good to kind of gut out a win. There's a kind of a busy Christmas schedule. So yeah, no, great stuff. What did you think, Ginge?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I wasn't at the game, but having watched that goaltend back or block, depending on which side of the fence you're on, I'm not 100% sure. I think it's a very tough call to make. I would probably have given it as a goaltend if I was reffing, but that's why I don't ref, because it's a tough job and I wouldn't want to have called that. But moving on to sort of the Caledonia Gladiators team, I think, like you both said, the American imports that they've brought in this year, mixed in with some of the Scottish and GB guys, has really got a nice blend to it. I think Gareth Murray's definitely taken a step up this year in terms of his ability to coach, and just focus on coaching has shown a massive change in that. One player that I have to shout out for them is Patrick Tape, at 6'10", and getting assists left, right, and centre, as well as scoring on the boards. He's just a good solid player. And David Sloan is probably one of the most exciting point guards rookie point guards in the league that I've seen for quite a few years. So I think he gives a nice balance. But 1 point win, we'll take it, right?
Yeah, I mean, on that point about Tape, I mean, I kept calling him Tape, like, because that's how it spells. Well, that's an unfortunate last name, but yeah, we got quite lucky with him, because if I remember rightly, he got in foul trouble quite early. He got in foul trouble, and he was a big unit. Obviously, we were sat courtside, and he was a big unit. And I thought, this plays right into us, this run and gun kind of basketball. I thought to myself, realistically, what kills us quite a lot of the time is having a mobile big man, and he was a mobile big man. So getting him off the court early was it was big. I'm sure he'll say, you know, there was some sort of controversial calls to get him in that sort of foul trouble. But yeah, he was a big one. He was a really, really big one. But the right players, obviously, you know, stood out for us. I mean, I've got it rolled down here. You know, Dirk got 25 points. You know, Ramon and Roberson got double doubles. You know, we'll go into Roberson in a bit, but you know, Ramon Fletcher, you know, just showing the league constantly why he is still probably in the top three, if not top 2 point guards in the league for me. You know, I mean, Sloan. I thought to myself, you know, it seems to be quite a trend at the moment where teams are, no matter where they are in the league, we're talking from NBA to the very bottom, every team has this absolutely rapid point guard, you know, and it's just the it's evolved. I mean, you know, I don't know whether it's just because I've sort of played like for sort of 20 years now, and the point guard never used to be a shooter really. He was always pass first, and yeah, he was quick, but he wasn't always the quickest on the court. But now every team has that absolutely rapid scoring point guard, and with Ramon Fletcher as well, just unbelievable passes. And that Sloan, he was a big worry for us, you know. And when you consider, I mean, man for man, we've got some good defenders, but as a team, I don't feel like, you know, we're absolutely fantastically defensively. Whether that's a team unit thing, you know, obviously for me, it's a statement thing. You know, you look at most of the time our biggest big's William Lee, and arguably William Lee could play three for me, you know, with his shooting, you know. So realistically, we sacrifice that big man for a mobile big. So he's been, you know, stuck up against some absolutely mammoth tasks, you know. But overall, you know, we got the win, which was huge for us in the end. You know, I always, when I'm coaching or when I'm playing, I always say, nick these little wins you need to nick. You know what I mean? The ones that might just swing your way, you know. And I think ultimately, as we'll go into more depth, but ultimately, as long as we stick around the playoff places, you know, keep nicking these little wins, you know, we're absolutely laughing. But yeah, this sort of brings us nicely onto the next bit that we was going to talk about. So it's the Giants' sort of current roster. So I'll let you guys get your thoughts on it. So a little thing I wrote down, you know, are we a man or two short? You know, is our depth costing us the game? So I'd like to chuck that over to you, Ginge.
Yeah, I think with the retirement of Corey Johnson, the injury to William Lee for quite a considerable amount of time during December, that definitely has left us a little bit short coming into that period. Personally, I think Nate Robinson isn't getting as much court time as he was pre-Christmas. Don't know whether that's due to injury or whether it's due to rotation choice by Vince. And Legend Robertson isn't getting enough court time to hone his skills and get to the level that he needs to be at to compete in this league. I think Anthony Roberson is probably one of the best versatile players that I've seen in the league for a very long time. We've spoken about it between the three of us over the last few months, and he can play 3 or 4 different positions in one game and do 3 or 4 different jobs. His tenacity, his attitude, and his want to win really stems out for me. I think his quality and credibility within this league is slightly overshadowed by having the likes of Dirk Williams, Taj Green, and Ramon Fletcher in the team. I think it overshadows him slightly. I think if you put him in a team like Plymouth or you put him in a team like Surrey, he would be the standout player. But because of where we are with the guys that are involved in the team, the Ramon Fletcher, probably the best BBL point guard consistently for the last 10, 12 years, still leading the league in assists. He's a great asset. His leadership on court, when things start to turn a little bit, they go on a run or it starts to get a bit frustrating for the Giants, you can see him pull the guys in, really go with it. William Lee offers you what he's always offered, which is an athletic big man that can give you both the 3-point scoring and the attacking to the rim, dunks, boards. He is, for want of a better word, the best stretch 4 in the league, in my opinion. But I think we miss a backup point guard. in terms of handling ability and ability to score the ball. That's taken nothing away from Callum Jones. He's come on, played some bigger minutes the last month or so, and he's had a fantastic run of games, particularly on the defensive end, and he offers something there. But yeah, in my opinion, I think another guard and potentially a 4/5 is what's missing from the team at the moment.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, just to sort of put my part on that, I couldn't have put it any better myself. I felt like when you mentioned about Roberson, like I said, a huge shout out to the guy, because I genuinely feel that, and I've mentioned it to you guys several times, that he has 3 positions he could potentially play on offense and 3 positions he can potentially play on defense at any given time in the game. And it takes a huge basketball IQ to understand that, because he could go from guarding a guy nearly 7 foot to guarding a guard, and when you mention, about like the backup point guard thing, yeah, again, it's huge, but we know Callum Jones isn't going to get you more than sort of 10 points a game. Last year we had, Tay McKnight, stepping in, and we had several other guys who could do that role, Callum included, so for me, that is definitely a worry, because I think to myself, Ramon Fletcher, although he doesn't play like a vet, he is a vet. He's someone that that could, if he gets injured, the chips are really going to be down. Again, obviously, I don't know what's up with Robinson. I really don't. He came on last night in the Cheshire game, and I feel like he always gives 100%, but we don't know what sort of goes on behind the scenes. When we talk about Robertson, now I've always used a saying which is very well used: you can't teach 7 foot. I always think if you're 7 foot, you've got a very, very good, and you're half decent at basketball, you've got a very, very good chance of being a professional basketball player. Now, I think my biggest thing about him is it's an issue that I find a lot of big guys have. Whether we're talking from sort of 6'8" upwards, and I call it big man soft hands. So it's like you remember the way Ben Wallace used to rebound, Dennis Rodman, things like that, literally like that. It was steel girders going up to grab the ball. I sometimes think, maybe if he meets the ball at the rim, there's all sorts of things. And I do genuinely think to become the complete big man, you need to be able to work it inside. And I find sometimes he's got one move and done kind of thing. And I always think just keep the ball high, use a spin rotation. They're not going to get the ball off you if you keep the ball high, a couple of bounces and then bring it up, maybe, pass it out. We've got some great 3-point shooters, but there is a lot of work, and he does work hard, and he's very mobile for a 7-footer. So I just think maybe give him the chance, and it'll really work. I think we've done a massively fantastic job with Dirk Williams. I think he's never had a lull in the battle, but he wasn't the player he was. I think he might have lost a lot of confidence at London when, they started bringing the huge names in, and he was like, wow, because, it wasn't all that long ago that we was talking Dirk Williams or Gino Crandall, the league's MVPs every year, So I feel like we've done, and we saw the hard work he put in was just absolutely unbelievable in the summer, and he's moved back up north, which would be great for him, So all these little things just go for us. My personal opinion, we obviously don't know the atmospherics of the situation or anything, but my personal opinion is we are 2 decent players away from being a championship team. It's very rare. We've pushed London right to the wire, probably, and we've come away from the games, and we'll go into the Leicester game again, but we've come away from the games, as we do all the time, saying, if we had that depth over the bench, and I feel last season we did have the depth, just I don't think everyone was always on the same page, but I do think, just that little bit more depth, we would be an absolute groundbreaking team, because no one can deal with the speed we've got. Nobody. The mobile bigs, Taj has been an absolute revelation, and I will finish on this. The only thing I'll say about Taj is that he sometimes goes chasing the baskets, but when you're hitting 20 odd points a game, that guy's got to chase it. You saw the way Michael Jordan played. Sometimes Michael Jordan would, score 20 baskets. Yeah, I've got 30 odd points, but he'd missed 50. So sometimes you've got to kind of sacrifice that. It's just unfortunately at the moment teams are just like Cheshire last night, they're just going on runs, and if it's not dropping for us, which is something we'll mention in the minute, if it's not dropping for us, on offense, etc., it's like, oh, what do we do now? And this is where I mean integrate the big guys into it. We've got the absolute unbelievable thing that William Lee can 1 minute be on the 3-point line, next minute be offensive rebounding. Roberson gets a big, that guy, as much as he's not getting 20 odd points every night, when you look at what he did, like against Cheshire last night, they couldn't deal with him offensive rebounds. You've got, I honestly think Ben Thomas put David Ulf on the court for quite a while because they was getting so many rebounds, and you look at players like, Ubiaro. I've never classed Will Neighbour as an out-and-out big man because he's more interested in stepping out for threes, but that's his game and that's fair enough. It's fantastic to have that. But William Lee being able to step out, come in and do all that, and then Roberson clearing up. This is what I mean when I say when you give these guys a rest, because at the moment I find that in the rotations we're swapping. Say William Lee will come off and Roberson will come on, and then Taj Green's the only big there, and Taj Green's what 6'7", 6'8", and then that takes everything away from his game because then he's got everything inside, and that's why I think we keep getting in foul trouble because these guys, as much as we are unbelievable in shot stopping and things like that, when you've got a 6'8" guy jumping up against, like I said, Will Neighbour, Tape, things like that, it's just not going to work. But yeah, I'd be interested to see what you thought, Ryan, as well, mate, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think, like you say, when you look at that starting five, kind of Ramon, Dirk, Roberson, Taj, and Will Lee, I think that's, one of the best fives you can get in the league in terms of versatility, ability to kind of do so much across so many different positions. I don't know, one of the guards we've not spoke about is Nick Lewis. And I think he's a great option off the bench and he can control the ball and can control the play, but it reminded me of a few years ago. It might have been during the COVID year, so maybe the roster was a bit up and down, but there was a noticeable lull when players went off. And I think that we risk that sometimes. And what we end up with a really strong four and a rotation player on for maybe a little bit longer than you would like. But that's because we've got to keep resting that starting five. Because like you say, Callum on the reinvigorated his career. That kind of where he was a few years ago, getting minutes in blowouts, minutes in big wins, big losses, as opposed to now being the first man off the bench and giving a real defensive effort. But he isn't going to replicate Ramon's assist. He's not going to replicate those points. When you bring on Robert in, yeah, he's very mobile for a 7-footer, but he's no Will Lee, he's no Taj Green. Nick Lewis can get points off the bench, but you can't replicate Dirk Williams' input. So it's making sure that, and looking at the Leicester game, Patrick Whelan didn't have the greatest game for Leicester.
Oh,
yeah, there are multiple other people that can fill up the box score. So that, I feel like, if you look at the team, Dirk's up there in points per games, Taj is up there in points per games, Fletcher's leading the league in assists. Will Lee's got to be up there in rebounds. He's still leading the league in blocks. Like, we've got highlight players, but where's that depth? Where's that, would you rather have one person in first or one in third, one in fifth, one in ninth? And that's where, teams like Leicester, teams like London, we joked the week, London had a not playing list that was probably the best starting five in the league. Playing. Starting five was probably as good as half the other BBL rosters. So, seeing that depth and seeing players that don't always shine step up for other clubs is obviously the direction we want to be heading in. But yeah, I agree. I think a decent combo guard, another big. I feel like Jin said Roberti maybe doesn't get as many minutes. I feel he sometimes gets himself into foul trouble a bit early. I don't know whether that's like that kind of nervous energy that he's on and he wants to prove himself and he wants to kind of earn those minutes. He's had some really dominant games where he's in the ball and he's jump hooking and he's drop stepping and he's 10 points in a flash and then he's off and then he's back on giving 100%. And then some games he comes on within 30 seconds, 2 fouls and he's off again, which puts a lot on Taj and it takes away a lot from his game when he's plonked inside. And then Will Lee, he's playing his way back from injury and he's in the BBL Star 5 for this week. But, beginning of the season, he was 1 or 2 with Sam Decker for early MVP within that kind of first 5, 6, 7 weeks. So that injury of his, I think he missed 7 or 8 games in total, maybe even more than that. that's a big miss. So Roberti needs to be able to come in so that Taj can play his more expansive game, and so that Will Lee doesn't have to play 35 minutes a game because Roberti gets himself in foul trouble. Yeah, definitely a couple short.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Obviously, like I said, we don't know what the atmospherics are, behind it. We don't know, why or anything. But I guess it's something we've talked about. We've just got to trust the process. I mean, what you got to remember is London wasn't always a dominant side. What they've done is they've turned around and said, "Hang on a minute, we're the capital city. Let's get some investors." Just the same as what the BBL's had to do, with the Sky deal, things like that. Risks have got to be taken, and I'm sure Vince and everyone involved will be taking these risks. You've only got to look at. I think as Giants fans, it frustrates us because for me personally, it's always the loudest arena. Ginger will attest to that. When it's full in there, it is unbelievable. The fans are right on top of you all the time. And people going about Newcastle and Leicester, and yeah, absolutely fantastic. But I don't think you can get much better than our guys. And I just think last season when I looked at the team, I thought, oh, this could do something. And I just think we've always been just that step behind. Take that little risk. I don't doubt London are paying Sam Decker and Costa Koufos and Ovi Soko and these players astronomical amounts of money, but that's because they took that risk and they overtook Leicester and Newcastle's dominance, and they took that risk, got into the Euro League and got that extra money, and that's all it needs to do. It's in every single sport, football, basketball, rugby. As soon as someone takes that little risk, and thinking, hang on a minute, if we can, take, because Leicester aren't unbeatable. They've been beaten, and this is why it frustrates me. We push Leicester every time we play them, every time. And Leicester, it must be frustrating for them because London are just so good. But I don't doubt Leicester will come back because, Leicester will lose a player and then get a player. I know we're going to go on to things like the Curry Johnson thing, but we lost a player and it was just like, we've lost a player, and it's like, whatever he was getting paid, there's surely someone who can affect the team out there who can come in and do a job for us. Because I don't, disagree. Corey Johnson, it wasn't the player he was a few seasons ago. Whether that's, could be anything to do with his family or it could be something to do with injuries, whatever. I don't know. But we do know one thing, that he was probably the best three shooter in the league a couple of seasons ago. Do you know what I mean? And probably on his day, he still is. I just think it was sort of wrong time, wrong team for him. And when you mention people like sort of Nicholas Lewis coming in, for me, he is an unbelievable player because he can run that point. I just think he's a little bit erratic. I just think, like yesterday, he shot a shot from near the logo, and I just thought, if it goes in, then fair enough. And he could have one of them games where he'll go off for 16, 20 odd points, and you just think unbelievable. And then sometimes he just won't be able to hit a bean. And he wasn't the only one yesterday. People, drop in and out. We find that, and it was a big frustration of mine last season that I thought a few games that we could have won. Players didn't step up sometimes. And I just think to myself, you look at the players we've lost, your Jordan Whelans, your David Ulfs, Jack Hudson's, stuff like that, people who can affect a game at any time. I just think to myself, because we all know they've all got other jobs, so it'll be, semi-pro wages kind of thing. Why didn't we just take that risk just to have that little bit extra? But obviously that's not for us to, to go into. We don't know what the atmospherics was or anything. But I do just think the league, especially like you hear, I mean, obviously with me running my own club, you hear of all this funding going into basketball, and it's such an exciting time to be part of basketball. I just think one team always, because I honestly think, genuinely think now Gareth Murray has got hold of it as a coach at Caledonia. I honestly think they're the next big team to come through now. I genuinely do. I really agree.
Picking up on that, George, I was just about to say, Caledonia, for me, with the investors that have gone into there, the women's program and the men's program, you can see that there's investment there, and it's that will be the next challenge. Picking up on what London have done so far this season, in my personal opinion, they are at a level that will bring British basketball up. I think for probably another season, we will see them dominate. And then I think we will see investors coming in, looking at the likes of Manchester, looking at the likes of Leicester, Newcastle. I think potentially with Birmingham coming in as a team and a couple of others coming in, it's only going to make things stronger. And I think if you look at the caliber of players that are now in the BBL compared to when I first got involved with it in 2011, 2012, when I first started going to watch Worcester rather than be involved from a commentary point, the caliber and standard of players is astronomically different. Totally. And I think if you look at the growth as a whole, it's where it needs to be. I think the 777 coming in and doing their thing with bringing in, looking at it as a content piece from Aaron's CEO point of view, looking at it as a content business and developing and opening the doors to seeing what can be achieved. I think it's a very exciting time to be involved in British basketball and on a journey, as you mentioned.
Yeah, definitely, mate, definitely. And it all brings it, to a head where you think, if you look at every team in the BBL, you think, they're the biggest place from where they're from. Apart from maybe, Surrey, and places like that. If you look, you got Plymouth is the biggest club around there. Manchester is the biggest club around there. Sheffield, they're all capital cities in their own little places. Do you know what I mean? And it is a sleeping giant. But we must move on. So, just looking at briefly, obviously, we mentioned the Leicester game. We've been into that. We're all frustrated with how that ended. We could have won, but we had a good win against Newcastle. Not much needs to really be said in that, because I thought it's quite a similar game to how we play every single time. Go up by a lot and then nearly chuck it away. But, that's just the nature of the beast. But I did want to touch on yesterday's game at Cheshire. So I thought it was actually quite funny. Cheshire's social media, they're just out to wind people up, aren't they? I find that every time when they
every
win.
post is Jamel, David. I mean, last time we played them away at theirs, I think their victory post was a picture of David Ulf and Jack Hudson, neither of whom they put on the court, but they just
exactly.
wine giants.
Yeah, they know. They know, and we can't blame them. Although I did message David Ulf at the start of the season when I found out he was there, just basically call him a traitor and never to talk to me again. But he was sound with it. We had a laugh with that. But I rage quitted on that game last night. It was about 4 minutes left and they was 14 up, and I just thought, I can't watch this anymore. I'd had a full day of it, and I was just like, I can't watch it anymore. And then to see we lost by 4 points, and I just thought, why the late run? We must have played some seriously good defense to stop them scoring right in that last 4 minutes, and us just score. And I'm like, why the late run? Do you know what I mean? It's just so frustrating. And I do think it all boils down to having that off the bench. As a coach, you need to have 2 or 3 good players in 2 different positions all over the court. You need a centre who can play power forward. You need a power forward who can play centre. You need a small forward who can play shooting guard. You need a small forward who can play power forward. And if you look across the league, they've all got these guys. They're all in there. But we won't touch too much on that, because obviously we try and stay positive. We've had some good wins, and Newcastle win, and you look at our squad and it's a great squad. I think that's why it's frustrating, because it's a fantastic squad. I just hope we don't lose these guys. Just to sort of finally cap it off, guys, and with everything, just seeing what your thoughts are going forward and everything like that. So I'll pass it over to you, Ryan.
Yeah, I think, like you said, we're in a great position. I think yesterday's game puts us in 5th, which is where we finished last year. I feel like if we can get in the top 4 and put the playoffs more in our hands in terms of home and away fixtures, things like that, that'll make a huge difference. I think if we're not going to bring anybody in, and it's frustrating. I know sometimes we'll message each other and say, Newcastle have let this person go. 2 hours later, Newcastle have signed this person. Cheshire have
Yeah.
gone through about 5 American guards this year, but there's always the next one and the next one and the next one. And for us, it does seem like there hasn't been any news. And like you say, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But yeah, I think London are kind of in a place of their own right now. They've lost as well this season. They're not unbeatable, but they're kind of in a space of their own at the moment. I'm really looking forward to them coming to National Basketball Performance Centre in a few weeks' time. But I think, Leicester are maybe a bit ahead of us. Bristol had a great start to the season. But I think that 4th spot is something really realistic for us to be looking at, and, looking at how the fixtures roll in towards the end of the season, whether our short roster leads to us dropping down maybe a little bit. I think we're in a great spot. Vince and kind of the team there coaching some brilliant games. It's been a really fun first half of the season. Some ups, some downs. Been to a few away games. One Leicester battered us. That wasn't much fun on a Friday night long drive home. Really looking forward to the second half of the season and kind of supporting the boys as we get towards the end of the year.
Yeah, just your thoughts, Ginge?
Yeah, so I think it's also, you got to bear in mind that 3 seasons ago, Manchester was sitting bottom of the table with probably 1 or 2 wins a year. So actually looking at it from a long-term perspective, and Vince has mentioned it when he first came in, that this is a 3 to 5 year plan to get hit where the club he wants the club to be. I think there's been some great changes made. I think there's been some big step ups in terms of development of the club. And I think it's a real positive space to be in. I know that just having the advertising in the centre of Manchester makes a big difference.
Yeah,
just having that ability to showcase what Manchester Giants basketball is all about. But I also don't feel like it's lost the ethos of what it was. So it still feels like a family club. It still feels like it's presented to the fans as a fans club, not a franchise that has people come and watch the basketball that's happening. It's a different element to that. I think if as Ryan said, if we can finish 4th spot, I think that's a great situation for us to get to. And it gives us an opportunity in the playoffs to go to where I think we can go. And let's be honest, who knows what's going to happen? Bristol may fall off a little bit. They've had a great start to the season, as Ryan said. And Leicester are Leicester. As much as Rob Paternoster is a frustrating coach to watch, and he's an absolute master tactician in terms of stopping people and also using the right people at the right time. Mark Levin went off for 28 in the game that we played at the overtime game in the first half. So that's where I think that was lost. But I'm really excited to see where we can go and be part of the Giants' journey for the next few years.
Brilliant, yeah. So, as we said, huge kudos to Vince and the players. These are just our thoughts. It's not the thoughts of everyone. Huge kudos, because you really are playing out your skin, and we see that, and that's why we don't mind, whatever happens. So, just again, a huge shout out to the players. Keep going at it. Keep trying, because all we ask is that you keep trying, and we know you are. Thank you so much for all your responses to our posts and everything like that. We are going to be more active now. Especially if I keep getting sent to Scotland and Ginge keeps getting sent to Kent. But that wraps us up, guys. I'm glad we got back on. I'm glad we managed to get a good chat out of the way. This podcast should hopefully be out by the end of the week, but you'll see it when you see it, because obviously we don't know. But yeah, just want to thank you guys for everything. And just keep coming, keep supporting, and keep giving us the courtside seats, Ginge. Nice one. Okay, guys, thank you very much for everything.